often hear the phrase, the bad neighborhood is on the other side of the railroad tracks. But have you ever wondered what came first? The bad neighborhood or the railroad tracks? And the answer is, it's complicated. It's complicated because in the US, cities have been strategically designed to enable some people to succeed while keeping others, namely inner city Black families, from finding that same success. So what's the impact of this today? It means that the unemployment rate for Black individuals is nearly twice that for white individuals. And it means that it would take a staggering 228 years for the average Black family to accumulate the same amount of wealth that the average white family has today. Every time I hear these statistics, I cringe. This is about so much more than low socioeconomic status. This is about race. And so I began to wonder, how did we get here? To understand the problem, we need to go way back. It's the 1920s and the start of the Great Migration, a migration in which more than 6 million Black individuals moved from rural areas of the South to cities in the North and the West. By coming north, they hoped to escape the overt and often violent racism of the Jim Crow South. But what they found was an even more insidious form of racism in the North. Racism hidden in the structural makeup of where they lived. When Black families came to the North, they were subject to the threat of the double H, housing and highways. In the 1930s, the government-sponsored Homeowners Loan Corporation graded US neighborhoods to determine if they would be approved for home loans. The form asked, is this neighborhood Negro? Yes or no? And this was the #1 determinant of whether a neighborhood was approved for a home loan. So when Black families tried to buy homes, they were told again and again, home loans are not available to you. And so these predominantly Black neighborhoods were systematically denied access to home loans. In the US, not being approved for a home loan is essentially a sentence for poverty. Home ownership accounts for more than 60% of wealth accumulation. And this only gets worse over time as wealth, or lack thereof, is passed down generation after generation. But the problems didn't stop at a lack of housing. In 1956, President Eisenhower unveiled his grand plan for the US interstate highway system. For urban planners, the creation of a highway was an easy way to take care of the places and spaces of people of color, which they termed blight. For Robert Moses, the master builder of New York City, purposely built the highway to cut through the heart of the Black community and to isolate Black neighborhoods from the rest of the city. With the creation of the highway, whites fled to the suburbs. These new suburban families no longer contributed their tax dollars or purchasing power to the city center. And so service available to those in the inner city quickly declined. Unfortunately, Black families were unable to access the amenities of the suburbs. Moses purposely built the bridges of Long Island so low that buses could never pass beneath. In doing so, he was able to keep Long Island pristine, a haven for whites with jobs and beautiful beaches, while trapping Black families in the inner city. Sadly, many of these divisions remain today. Let's take Detroit. Inner city Detroit is almost 80% Black. But if you cross 8 Mile Road to the north or the expressway to the south, you find suburbs that are just 1% Black. And there's even a wall. It's termed Detroit's Berlin Wall. And it was built in the 1940s to separate the Black neighborhood from the white one. And this matters. It matters to me, and it should matter to all of you. It matters because racial inequality is so deeply embedded in the US that where you live is a proxy for your life opportunity. Social scientists study the disconnect between where low-income households reside and where the suitable jobs are located. In cities like Detroit, where the Black rate segregation is the highest, you also see the highest levels of disconnect with that job distribution and the largest Black-white income gaps. Where you live determines where your children can go to school, what food you can buy, what health care you can receive, and what public transportation is available to you. So if your race determines where you live, then your race determines your access to these basic amenities. And this matters for all of us. It's about what is moral and it's about what is just. But it also has serious economic consequences. One 2013 study found that a unit increase in a city's racial segregation led to a 1.5% decrease in a city's economic growth. And another study found that greater segregation is linked to large and significant increases in the rates of violent crimes, such as robbery or aggravated assault. This is not acceptable, and it needs to change. And there are things that we all can do. First, we need to add amenities to these still underserved neighborhoods. Open a grocery store, build a pharmacy, invest in neighborhood gardens, entertainment spaces, or schools. We can start by taking advantage of underutilized assets. In Cleveland, city residents found an abandoned Kmart building and they turned it into a recreation center that's now used by inner city youth. Do you know that there are millions of square feet of this type of empty floor space waiting for our investment all across the US? Next, we can take a hard look at our public transportation systems. In 1994, the LA Bus Riders Union sued the Transit Authority for racially discriminating against minority groups in their delivery of public transit. The bus riders won. And when LA Transit added hundreds of new buses, Black ridership significantly increased. And finally, we can implement inclusive housing policies. We need to zone more neighborhoods for multifamily housing. When you invest in a neighborhood, it often leads to gentrification, pushing out the original tenants as housing prices rise. When we zone for multifamily housing, we can keep prices affordable and protect those most vulnerable to displacement, even as the value of a neighborhood rises. Racial inequality is a huge issue for this country. Yes, we need more diversity in the workforce. And yes, we need more equitable treatment of citizens by law enforcement. But I would argue that metropolitan equality is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. We need to understand how our cities were built, how communities were intentionally marginalized, and how those segregations remain today. So demand investment in neighborhoods, and demand equitable public transportation, and demand inclusive, affordable housing. At Stanford, we strive to change lives and change organizations and change the world. But let's start by changing the cities in which we live.